Alive Again radio program with your host, Louis Carrillo. Alive Again is a Christ-centered recovery program where we share our experiences of strength and hope to help others recover from unhealthy dependencies, unhealthy lifestyles, and strongholds in our lives. Our mission for this radio program is to edify, encourage, and educate our listeners to help them establish and develop a relationship with God. Here's your host, Louis Carrillo.
Hey, well, welcome to the first show of Alive Again radio hour here on the Man 1210. What a privilege to be here today, to be able to share this message of victory on what's happening in recovery in this world and all the things about unhealthy dependencies. You know, Alive Again is a ministry that's really been established to help others. And today we have the privilege, and it's very, very fitting that we have Mr. Russell SPATZ with us, who today happens to be his birthday. He is 70 years old. Is that correct, Russell?
Yeah, well, but it's not how old you are, it's how you feel. Unfortunately, I feel like I'm 94, but other than that, everything's working out. You know, I'm 70 today.
70. Congratulations, Russell. And I've had the privilege of...
Oh, it's your birthday. Wasn't it your birthday yesterday?
My birthday was yesterday, 59 years young.
59? You know, I have shoes 59. My shoes are older than you.
I think I've seen some of them as well.
Yes, that's true.
Well, Russell, you know, you've been a mentor, a leader, a guide in my life for the last 11 years, and I've been participating in the Alive Again ministry for 11 years, or the Alive Again program. And it's been an incredible experience for me. It's been transformational in my life. And can you tell us a little bit about Alive Again and maybe a little bit about your history?
Well, okay. Well, I've been around 70 years. And,
yeah.
I came into recovery when I was 31 years old, so I'm not going to do the math on that, but I think it's 38 or 39 years. And somewhere along the line, I'm not sure when the exact date is. I want to say it was maybe in 2000 or something. I joined. I started going to a Bible study, I think, in 1999 or 98 at Oak Hill Presbyterian Church. Wonderful, wonderful Bible study. And I accepted Jesus. My deal was, I'll go back a little ways. On December 25th, Christmas Day, Christmas morning, 1980, when I was in had gotten myself in a real problem spiritually and emotionally because of alcohol and things like that. I got to a point in my life where things got pretty bad for me. Although it didn't look bad circumstantially on the surface.
Yeah.
Still had a job and things like that. And at that point at 3 o'clock in the morning, a preacher came on the TV and was giving the gospel message. He did it in such a way, he did it in terms of testimony. I love testimony. Always loved testimony. You know, what it was like for him,
right.
What happened to him, and what it's like now. And he said, if you wanted to change your life, you need to give your life to Jesus. And it was at that time I got on my knees and I said the sinner's prayer. I gave my life to Jesus. And 30 days later, on January 25th, 1981, I stopped drinking. Never had a drink since then. At least up to this moment, haven't found it necessary to do that deal. And that was a big deal for me because I'd gotten to a point in my life where I couldn't stop drinking.
That's 39 years now, is it?
I think it's 38.
38 years.
But who's counting? And I had obviously hurt a lot of people and hurt myself as a result of that. But the bottom line is after many years of being in recovery, I started going to this Bible study at Oak Hill Presbyterian Church. And at that point, I came in contact, I think in about the year 2000, with a gentleman, Dr. Michael Woodham, who we affectionately refer to as Woody. And I started working with him and mentoring him in the recovery program. And we started to do Christ-centered recovery meetings. And we decided to go out I'm not going to tell the whole story how it happened, but somebody from the church, I think the church psychologist or something, they had a psychologist or counselor, was supposed to go out and preview or check out the Celebrate Recovery program out at Saddleback Church.
Yeah, Rick Warren.
Yes, and with
John Baker
and Rick Warren, and he couldn't make it, so he asked me whether I wanted to go on behalf of the church to check it out. So I went out there with Woody and another guy named John Murphy, and we went out there and we checked out the program. We loved it. We loved what they were doing, and it was certainly a takeoff on the 12 steps, but it was Christ-centered, and so we came back and we said, wouldn't it be great if we could develop something like that over here? But we had decided for various reasons, which I won't go into now, we loved the idea, but we wanted a different model. We wanted a model that was more, how you leave the 99, go after the one, maybe more evangelical, more like something that would be not so, I don't want to use the word churchy, but something where somebody could actually walk in, having never been to a church before, and would still feel sort of like comfortable and at home. So we developed the Alive Again model. You didn't need much to start. You didn't need to buy all the material. We love Celebrate Recovery. I speak at Celebrate Recovery meetings, but one of the we didn't want a concept where we were basically limited to just the Celebrate Recovery material. We wanted to be able to use anything. We wanted to be able to use the Bible, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 and 12, and whatever. We wanted to use any material.
All the tools available.
All the tools available, and be able to put on meetings. And so that's what we did, and we started at Old Cutler Presbyterian Church. And now we have meetings all over the place, and of course we have a website, alive-again.org. and ORG, and that's our website, and that's how it's sort of like developed.
So thank you, Russell. So someone goes to alive-again.org, they can find out about the meetings that we have available throughout Dade County, and there's also the 12 steps are on there, correct?
I believe so, and also I believe we may even post, I think we post Celebrate Recovery meetings too.
Yes.
We post all recovery meetings.
All Christ-centered recovery meetings. And we're hopefully going to be posting these programs on the radio tag on the website as well. So people can go on there and listen to the show at their convenience.
Yeah, and of course we wanted to deal with not only alcoholism, drug addiction, but codependencies, sexual addiction. We've got a lot of sex addicts or people who are addicted to, that kind of stuff. And we wanted to just deal with anybody who had problems that, they might feel a little bit reticent about speaking about them to people in the church and things like that. So that's what we deal with. And we just have some great meetings and great people that come to the meetings. A lot of people have come through. It's helped a lot of people.
I've been part of it. I've been blessed to be part of it. And I've enjoyed, being in the process with others, because it's a family. It's a fellowship, right?
Right, it is a family. And we had a great meeting last night. At 6 o'clock we had pizza, and 7 o'clock we had the meeting, and then we had an incredible meeting this morning at 9:30 in the morning. So
and those are both at Old Cutler Presbyterian Church.
Those are at Old Cutler Presbyterian. There's other churches and other postings, but that's where we hang out. That's where our meetings are.
Yeah, it's a blast. There's nothing like it. It's the family that I never knew I could have.
Yeah, well, you find out in this deal that sometimes your family is not your family is not necessarily blood related. Your
Absolutely.
True family. So,
and Celebrate Recovery is also a Christ-centered 12-step recovery program for anyone who's struggling with hurts, pains, or addictions of any kind. And just like Alive Again, Celebrate Recovery is a safe place to find community, fellowship, and freedoms from the issues that are controlling your life.
And if I may be incorrect on this, because I also go to sermons and services over at Christ Fellowship, I think you're involved in the recovery program at Christ Fellowship, aren't you?
Yes, I am, Russell. Thanks for pointing that out. By God's grace, and really that's what it is, I've been part of that program for quite some time. As a matter of fact, you launched me. He says, okay, now you've got your thing to do. This is your vehicle of service. Go do it.
Right.
And I've been back in it again, and we're having a great time over there. We're you can go to celebraterecovery.com.
Right.
And this message, this signal for 1210 The Man goes from Northern Keys to the middle of Palm Beach County.
Right.
And Celebrate Recovery is throughout all these counties. So if you want to find a place that's close to you, that's a Christ-centered recovery group, go to celebraterecovery.com. And we got some great supporters at Christ Fellowship, and they were supportive of getting this message out. So,
and we want to help anybody. I've had the privilege of discipling a lot of men, and of course, my son-in-law was also involved in recovery over at Christ Fellowship. And
yes,
we have the traditional Baptist service at Christ Fellowship. Even though I'm a member, I'm a deacon over at Oak Cutler. We have a traditional Baptist service over at Christ Fellowship at 6 o'clock on Sunday with Reverend Carrie Miller. And Carrie's just wonderful, and and he's been preaching for, 70 years or something like that, and he comes to a lot of our sessions with his wife Doris, and we just have an incredible time with incredible people. And I just want to let who's ever out there know that they can contact us at any time, through the website and email, and we're willing. We have people, I don't care where you are, we're willing to help you set up a 12-step ministry. You don't need much for our deal. It's not a big deal. We got brochures. It doesn't cost any money. We'll be happy to send you our brochures, and you can find them on the internet. We can send them to you. You print up your own brochures, put your own church's name on it, and all you need is a brochure that we have, a flyer. You have one right there, and a Bible, and that's it. And anything else you want to add, and you could do your own thing.
As a matter of fact, Russell, on alive-again.org, there's you can download the steps. You can download their brochure.
Right.
It's basically a fellowship opportunity ready to get started.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be with the church. It can be just a group of people that want to improve their dependency on something other than they are leaning on or using as a crutch. Because, Russ, we've been doing this for a little while, and I know you've been doing it for a long time. And after the alcohol goes away, you're stuck with the thinking part, right?
Well, what you ultimately realize is people get into recovery. I mean, this is just my opinion based upon my experience, and of course all the literature I've studied, and I've been working with alcoholics and drug addicts for 38 years. People get involved in drinking or drugging or doing whatever they're doing because they're unhappy with being sober. The alcoholism, the drinking part, the substance part, is really a symptom of the disease. I mean, it's a heck of a symptom. They don't arrest you for driving while angry, or driving while feeling sorry for yourself, or driving while depressed, or driving while envying or coveting, or any of that stuff. But alcoholics are by and large just cannot handle life on life's terms, the way it's going, and they use alcohol. They may start off very simply. It may not seem like a big deal. They may not suffer any major consequences, but alcoholics and drug addicts use the drugs and the alcohol because they work, because they give them a feeling of ease and comfort and a way to handle life. And so the reason why alcoholics use drugs and then ultimately get physically addicted to them and alcohol is because they like the effects produced by these substances. And a lot of people don't get the same effects. They don't understand. Non-alcoholics don't get the same effects that alcoholics have from alcohol, but they use these substances because they need to use them because they're unhappy with their sobriety, living life sober. But of course, once you take, and they may use it for like 10 or 15 or 20 years, but of course, then it gets to the point where it gets worse and worse. It's progressive, it's chronic, it causes more problems, maybe divorce, maybe criminal problems, maybe DUIs, and sometimes it can be very severe. I've represented people that have been involved with vehicular homicide, And what happens is it gets to a point they finally crash and burn, and they got to stop using the drugs, but of course, or the alcohol. But of course, once they stop using the drugs and the alcohol, the underlying dis-ease, the underlying reason for why they used it in the first place is still there. You know, they're still restless and irritable and discontented, and
that desire to feel different than how you're feeling, because
and you know, they may get involved in other things. They may find out down the road, and they probably will, that they crave a lot of other stuff. You know, they may be overspenders. They spend money they don't have to buy stuff they don't need, to live a lifestyle or impress people, you know, they don't even like. They may find that it may get involved in pornography, may get involved in eating disorders. There's a lot of things that alcoholics use, drug addicts use. It's just that nothing worked as fast or better than alcohol. But there's a lot of things, there's a lot of addictive behavior.
Unhealthy dependency.
Unhealthy dependencies. That's what the thing is about. What the true thing is about is dependencies that ultimately, there was a psychiatrist named Carl Menninger who said alcoholics are men and women who are out to destroy themselves. They just act self-destructively, although they don't really think they're doing it in their relationships and who they hang out with and things like that. So really the recovery from alcoholism takes over after you stop using the substance. That's when the recovery has to take place, so you can get to a point in your life where you're not only not drinking or using drugs or doing whatever the behaviors you're doing, but you actually feel happy about your life and feel it, and you're at peace with yourself.
Well, you got to stop doing whatever the substance is to be able to start dealing with your feelings.
That's correct. That's what I found, and that's what I found with most people. You can't work on the underlying cause if you're still using.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to partake in this conversation, you can email us at aliveagain.theman@gmail.com, and we will take your questions that you email to us on the air. Next week, we will have a call-in capability, so we look forward to receiving your calls next week. But please, if you'd like to participate, you can email us at aliveagain.theman@gmail.com. You know that the entry music that we had to the show, I got to give a shout out to Armando Tranquilino. Armando Tranquilino he's a composer, a musician, and a professor at FIU Music Department. He's got one of the most popular online and on-site classes called The History of the Beatles. And this song that he allowed us to use here is called Montuno Rock, and you can go to BigToeSongs.com. That's BigToeSongs.com to get more of his music. Thank you, Armando. Really appreciate you letting us use this. So, Russell, I want to go back to Pastor Carey, that you were mentioning that traditional service, because Pastor Carey himself has been involved in recovery, but it's kind of funny because we've known him for a long time, and we got 2 minutes before we go to break. But one of the things that really interests me about him is that he said, you know, I didn't know it, but once I got into recovery and coming to the meetings, I've been preaching recovery all my life. Well, I just didn't know what it was.
I want to make it clear. Pastor Carey's not an alcoholic or addict or anything like that.
Right.
He's been senior pastor in many different churches. I don't want to say the word retired because these guys never retire. He's involved. But he just sort of got involved in our ministry because we loved him so much and him and his wife so much. And they just got involved. I think he's preached in so many places and he's spoken in so many places. And he's done a lot of revival meetings. He finally got to the point where Jesus got him to the point where he can actually work bid time with alcoholics and addicts. So he just loves working with us, absolutely. And he's a guide for us. And of course, my former sponsor, and then John Glenn was also a wonderful man, but he just passed away. So yeah, Pastor Carey comes to our meetings, and I guess he's like our chaplain.
Absolutely.
Him and his wife. We love them.
Yeah, very special people. Yeah. It's a blessing to be around with them all the time as well. And they are committed to the cause, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Absolutely.
People love them, and we love, they love us.
So Russell, this whole radio program was really, I'm not going to get into it right now. When we come back from our commercials, we'll get into a little bit more because, the word God incidents.
Yeah. I know all about it.
You know all about that,
I know
right?
all about it. You know, when your eyes are opened, you see God all over the place. When your eyes are closed, you don't see Him at all.
So we're going to talk about God incidences when we come back.
Right.
So now, please, we go to the messages that we have. And we're back with Alive Again. Russell, before we went off to break, I wanted to talk about God incidences because, you know, we recently were talking about when someone is ready and they become teachable, the teacher shows up.
Yeah. Well, maybe the teacher's always there. They just all of a sudden come ready. You know, that's possible.
Yeah, so God incidences. God incidences. I know how I see them. And I'm sure that over the years that you've been sober and but more importantly, working in people's lives, you know, volunteering your time, your energy, your calling to serve in recovery and to carry the message of recovery through your Lord and Savior, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That's the power.
In my life, the intersection or the incidents when God has appeared through His power in my life has happened so often that whereas in the beginning it used to amaze me, I'm still amazed by it, but I'm so used to it, it's just part of my life. So it's something I'm very used to. There's probably been so many thousands of times that things have transpired in my life that I just have to say, you know, thank you, Jesus, or thank you, Lord.
Right?
Yes. I can't even relate them all because a lot of them, they happen. I say, thank you, Jesus. And then, you know, I've forgotten about them. And some of them are impressive. One incident I remember. I think, quite honestly, early on, when they really started happening to me because my eyes were opened and I was living life on more of a spiritual plane, and I realized that God did exist. I think early on I took even more notice. I was more excited about Him than I am now, where it's just part of the way I exist. And one of the reasons why I have less fear. But I remember once I had, it was early on in my recovery. I don't know, I had 3 or 4 years or something. I was going through a difficult time. I don't know what it was. You know, who knows what it had to do with, but I was going through a difficult time. When people in recovery go through a difficult time, the one thing I've learned about alcoholics is they don't get depressed, they get very depressed.
Extremes.
We're like big at hyperbole, you know. I'm going to kill myself. I'm very depressed.
Exactly.
I've had the worst year, you know.
The world is over.
Yeah, I used to have somebody come up and he says, oh, this is the worst year I've ever had in my life. And then you start talking to them and you find out they had a bad 5 minutes, you know, in the morning or something. Had an argument with their wives. But I was going through something and I was, you know, feeling down and feeling depressed. And I called up one of my mentors and I started telling him how horrible I was doing and how things were really, really bad. So he said, I'll meet you. You know, where are you? And it was around, 6 o'clock at night, 5:36. And he said, I'll meet you outside. I was driving towards Coral Gables, outside the Denny's, which is right across from the University of Miami. In Coral Gables, it's still there. And I said, okay, I'll meet you there, whatever, at 6:30. And I drove my car, and I'm there outside the Denny's, standing on the sidewalk, waiting for him, thinking about the horribleness of my life. And, well, you know, I wasn't drinking or anything like that. That had long passed. This was just now dealing with the mental stuff that you deal with.
The thinking part.
The thinking part, you know. The drinking you can stop. The thinking is a whole, the prognostication, you start projecting what's going to happen.
Sure.
And
mountains out of molehills.
Mountains out of molehills. And so I'm standing there thinking about all this stuff, and all of a sudden, and the sun's going down. It's getting darker. It's like twilight, and I see about a block away. You know, there's nobody on the street. You know, and I'm looking about a block away. I think it was like on a Saturday or a Sunday, and I think it's like a block away, and I see somebody. I make out a figure coming towards me. It was sort of strange looking figures, and then I noticed that it was a lone figure, and it was somebody in a wheelchair, one of those electric wheelchairs, all by themselves, nobody else around. And so I'm captivated. I'm looking at this this man, and I couldn't even tell it was a man, somebody, this figure in a wheelchair coming at me. And I'm just sort of watching him because there's nothing else to do as he comes closer and closer and closer. And as he's coming up real close to me, I see he's a paraplegic. He's got his hand on a button, and he can like move his neck, and his head's sort of down and wobbling, and obviously paralyzed, like from the neck down or something like that. And as he passes by me, he looks up at me and he smiles and he says, "How you doing?" Wow. And I said, "I'm doing great. How are you?" He says, "Doing great. Nice to see you. Have a great day." And then he keeps on going, goes past me. And so my mentor, the guy, Bob Sullivan, showed up. And he said, "So what's the problem?" I said, "Nothing. Everything's great." I couldn't remember why. I couldn't remember what it was bothering me. I said, I mean, how can you even think about yourself when you see something like that? Here's a guy, he's paralyzed from the neck down. He's in a wheelchair. And he passes by there and he says hello to me. He's got a smile on his face. What am I going to say? I'm worried about, who knows? Whatever the thing was, it was gone. As far as I'm concerned, that's a God incident. That's God absolutely. In my life, working in my life. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. People come into my life, things happen, stuff happens. I see things,
Your perspective changes when you have that experience, that supernatural experience, which, I'm not saying that you're going to be lifted by angels or anything like that. I'm just saying God involved in your life, the daily activities that you're doing, a way that you used to react before is now completely opposite of how you were reacting, and things affecting you completely differently than they were affecting you. Because Russell, that's, the alcohol, the identity in your job, the drugs, whatever your unhealthy dependency is, you're using it as a crutch, and it becomes unhealthy over time. And a relationship, what I understand, what I've learned, is that a relationship with God, with Jesus Christ, will help you rely on Him rather than on these unhealthy crutches.
Well, in the Bible it says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all things will be added unto you." And it also says, seek, really seek His presence. See to it your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass, you and countless others. And it's a way of life. It's a spiritual way of life and a spiritual way of looking at things. And you have your choice. You can live a life of fear, or you can live a life of hope. And, living a life of fear, you always have to have control of things. You always have to make sure you know what's happening. You always have to worry about stuff and be very, very vigilant. And a life of hope is a life where you know, even though things may look bad, that, you just presume that there is a God and somehow He's beneficent and things are going to work out. And I remember one time, and you just look at things differently. I remember one time I went to a recovery meeting. I was feeling particularly lonely. And that's another thing that haunts alcoholics. They crave relationships, they crave romance, they crave a lot of stuff because they feel lonely and they need to connect. And, I felt particularly lonely one day, and I went to a recovery meeting with this sense of, and I walked in, I knew nobody. It was early on, and when you walk into a room and there's 100 people and everybody's laughing and smiling, nobody. What happens is you feel even more alone.
You feel like 6 inches tall.
You feel even. And so I was thinking about how alone I was, and and I didn't know anybody, and I was standing there and drinking coffee, and then I looked up at the podium, and there was this big sign, and the sign said, "You are not alone." And all of a sudden, I just knew. That God had put that there for me. Now, of course, a lot of people say, "Well, He didn't just put that there for you. He put that there for a lot of people." And but the point is because of my lifestyle and because of the scales falling from my eyes and because I believed in God, in my mind, what that did for me, that was better than going to 15,000 psychiatrists and paying $3,000 and poppy antidepressants. All I had to do was see that. You know what I mean? And I knew that was meant for me. Yeah. And that's because I was living, or at least starting the rudimentary living a life of faith.
Right.
so that I was able to pick up on these things. Now, it's possible that somebody else who's not ready for that could walk in there with the same feelings of loneliness and see that sign or not even notice that sign was there.
Right.
But that has to do with something working inside of me. And whatever that thing was working inside of me that allowed that sign to have that effect on me has gotten stronger and stronger as my faith has gotten stronger. And I got to tell you something, if you got a choice of living a life of fear or a life of hope, quite frankly, I'll take the life of hope.
Absolutely.
It's a lot better.
Much better. And, I mean, sleep, right? People take sleep for granted, right?
Yeah.
Being able to fall asleep without your brain keeping you up and not waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning with your brain going crazy.
I used to drink myself to sleep.
Yeah. I remember in my life as well. Yeah. Hey, as a matter of fact, we have a couple of questions. Ray wants to know if someone who may be listening to this and is struggling with addiction, what's the next step that you would like for them to do?
Make a phone call. Call up somebody. You can call up Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, call up Alive Again, the people at Alive Again, send a message, connect with somebody who's involved in recovery and say, how about this? You don't even have to say I need help. That may be too tough. How about I think I may need help? That way, it's not like a total surrender. It's not like it's not like you're saying I need help. You're saying, well, maybe, perhaps, just possibly, I need help, and then just hear what they have to say. And
so reach out.
Reach out. That's it.
Reach out and just take a baby step.
Yeah. Don't try to figure it out on your own. It's probably not going to work that way.
Now, Russell, at Alive Again, I mean, we've talked a little bit about it, but we deal with hurts, habits, and hang-ups, just like Celebrate Recovery. And the funny thing is that anybody who does not have a drinking problem, does not have a drug abuse problem, anybody who seriously takes a look in their heart and says, what is it in my life that I go to sleep thinking about and wake up in the morning thinking about and stress over and worry about? I mean, that can be considered an addiction.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the deal. There's a lot of people that are not addicted to. Actually, you're fortunate if you have a drug and alcohol problem because it may not be the underlying problem, but at least it gets you to the point where you can actually point to something. I can't stop drinking. I can't stop using drugs. I need help. It can get you there quicker. But what about the person? And there's quite a lot of them. I mean, I get guys to come to my office and they're charged with domestic violence. And they constantly get involved in a relationship where there's violence involved or anger involved and stuff like that. And you ask them, what do they do? And they say, that's just my personality. It's the way they act. And the one thing that's interesting about alcoholics, drug addicts, and all these people is they are very poor at looking at themselves. But they can tell you everything about every crappy person around them.
Well, isn't that a byproduct of a self-centered type of life or perspective?
Well, their perspective is they can recognize idiots. They can tell you and take the inventory of every person in their life that's done them wrong. It's all about bad breaks and misunderstandings, and you don't understand. It's not my fault. It's some other guy's fault, and I wouldn't have burned down the house if she didn't say this or she didn't do that. And they're like rationalizers. They tell themselves rationalizers. They seldom see where their actions and their attitudes have anything to do with this. So,
Russell, hold on a second. You said something there that I want to reemphasize. Rationalizers.
Yeah.
They tell themselves rational lies.
It makes sense to them. I thought, I many times, I didn't realize that there were different ways to react to things. I didn't realize that, when something happened that got me mad, because I always assume, by the way, that people should act exactly the way I think they should act. They should address me the way I think they should address me. They should talk to me the way I think they should talk to me. They should always be good. And unfortunately, most human beings are emotionally disturbed and frequently wrong. All you have to do is drive in Dade County traffic. And when you go with an attitude that people should always, you assume that people should always, you hold them to a certain standard and they should act like this. Of course, understanding that I was never holding myself to any standard. But the bottom line is when you go, then what happens is you tend to get a lot of resentments. You tend to get angry a lot. You tend to get disturbed a lot. And you never actually get to the point where you look at yourself and your own attitude towards people And so you tend to be angry a lot, or feeling sorry for yourself a lot, or feeling how crappy life is. And here's the deal. The bottom line is, to the extent that you're unable to, you see, I always thought whenever I reacted to something, and they may have done something wrong, but I always assumed that the only way to react is to be angry. That I couldn't react in such a way where I could accept them, that this is the way they are, and not take it. I took everything personally. There are people that take everything so personally, and they get angry about it, and that's a crummy way to live life.
Certainly is. Man, that perspective is really messed up.
Perspective is really messed up, and it rises from your own thinking.
Those expectations and entitlements.
Right.
And as soon as we come back from these next messages, we'll talk about the 2 deadly E's, entitlements and expectations.
Okay.
And welcome back to the Alive Again radio program. I'd like to give a little shout out to an attorney law firm in Coral Gables called Quintero Broche. They specialize in transactional law, civil litigation, and criminal litigation. They're in the Gables. And my shout out is because there's a special attorney over there that's working now. Her name is Katrina Carrillo.
That's your last name.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's a God incident right there.
So Katrina Carrillo works over at Quintero Broche. She's an attorney there, and you can reach them at 305-446-0303. That's Katrina Carrillo, attorney at law at Quintero Broche, 305-446-0303. I had to do that, or else I will get in trouble.
No, that's important. You have to you got to do things like that.
Now, hey, and by the way, during that last commercial break, we got a call in from one of our.
By the way, Louis,
yeah.
Did I explain to you that everything in my life and everything that's good, my wife is responsible for that?
Oh, Russell.
Did I explain that?
Yes.
I want to make sure that goes out on the air.
That everything good in your life is because of your wife.
My wife, Dickie.
Oh,
Jesus
okay.
Christ and my wife, Dickie.
Okay. I'd like to put them in that order.
I want to make sure that goes out there. Okay, go ahead.
I know your wife well. I know she'll be pleased with that statement.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how that works out.
And we got a shout out from Alan Oria from Celebrate Recovery.
Great guy.
He called us during the commercial break, and he's God, what a guy.
He works tirelessly to help people, and he's
in Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. He's now getting involved, launching a new Celebrate Recovery, another for Friday nights out on Bird and 107th, I believe.
Another church, and I'm not sure, Matthew Box Church.
Yeah, and we're going to probably have him on as well, so we can start to help promote that, the launching of that as well. But Russell, before we went to break, we ended on the 2 deadly E's, as I like to call them, entitlements and expectations. And you were talking about how you were expecting everybody to act a certain way and do things a certain way because you felt entitled to that reaction from them. And I can relate to the same thing. I know these are, no one's ever going to meet your expectations, and we're really not entitled to anything.
Well, I'll tell you what I was entitled to. Once you start working on yourself and you start learning about yourself and you start seeing things about yourself and your actions, you realize you don't want what you're entitled to. You don't want what's fair, because if I got what's fair, what I was entitled to, it would be a real problem. Okay,
something dealing with burning fire and things of that nature.
Yeah, something like the lake of fire or something like that, because I was pretty selfish and self-centered and always thinking about myself. And we don't have, I've got a million stories about my life before I came to recovery about how I treated people and what I did. And of course, if you're selfish and self-centered, you never think you're selfish and self-centered. You think that you're the greatest and you're just such a wonderful guy. And you tend to, if you ever do anything wrong, you tend to justify it.
And that's one of those rational lies.
Or you drink it away or something. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But you start learning about who you are and what you are.
So Russell, there's
we had a lady at one of our meetings. I'm not going to give her name.
It's funny because because one of the other questions that Ray had was also what happens in meetings.
What happened? Well, we had a lady. We had a lady at a meeting who shall remain nameless, and she was talking about her story and about her bad breaks and misunderstandings and the tragedy which is her life. And we finally got to like the 5th or 6th marriage, and she was talking about how she was She had been married 5 times, and of course, she was talking about all the problems with all her 5 husbands. And, we just suggested that it might occur to her that after being married 5 times and having all these horrible husbands that were 5 times married that she divorced, that maybe there was a problem. Maybe she had a problem. There may be something. Maybe, she did play some hand. She was the one who picked them.
There was one common denominator.
There was a common denominator, and there was some things, but she may not have been able to see it. But she was very good at pointing out what their inadequacies
Yes,
were.
absolutely.
Listen, I've been married for 38 years, and the one thing about how do you stay married, I'll tell you how you stay married. And I love my wife. You ignore 90% of the stuff that's going on because it ain't no big deal. You don't sweat the small stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You surrender those.
Yeah.
And it's happy wife, happy life. Yeah. And but Russell, that all comes from a state of mind of surrendering.
Right.
Right. And we can't surrender to our wives and be the husbands that we're called to be if we haven't done other things in our lives, like surrender our lives to God's will, to the Lord, right?
Yeah, that's right. Take yourself out of the center of the universe as being the Lord and Savior of everybody and the most important person. And one of my sponsors once said to me, says, your problem, Russell, is you think everybody should think the way you think. I told him once, he said, how you doing? I said, I'm doing great. He says, you must be getting your own way. And I was. Half an hour later, I wasn't, and I wasn't feeling so good,
Yeah.
Happiness really means, the ability to be happy means nothing if you can only be happy when you get your own way.
Yeah. Well, it's on your terms and conditions, and that's not how the world works.
Well, if you live in Dade County, I can tell you this: if you're only happy under your terms and conditions, don't drive in traffic.
You're going to be disappointed.
You're going to be disappointed. That's
absolutely.
That's correct.
I want to do a shout out to some of the folks over at Christ Fellowship at Palmetto Bay, Nazi and Nubia and Sandra, the gang that's listening in today. I'm getting text messages from them. What a great ministry to be part of. Yeah. The ladies over there are, something that's different between Celebrate Recovery and Alive Again and some of the other fellowships is that in Celebrate Recovery, the men meet with the men and the women meet with the women when they break off into small groups. So there's an opportunity to even go a little deeper in sharing as far as that's concerned.
Right.
Like it's suggested in our fellowships that men are sponsors to men and women are sponsors to women.
Right.
Right, so that they can go a little deeper. Right. Now, we were talking about what happens in meetings, and I've referred to meetings as one of the most incredible places because it's a venue where there's no agenda. People are just trying to be transparent. They're trying to be honest. They're vulnerable, and it's what happens in the rooms are amazing. Going back to Ray's question concerning, what happens in the meetings. There's more than that. Transformation happens in the meeting also, right, Russell? People get convicted. They hear. Well, tell me about the other stories.
Let me give you an example. Most people that by the time they get to a meeting, they're very much convinced that there's nothing necessarily wrong with their way of thinking. They just see things a certain way, and they're very well defended. They're very ready to argue with you, saying, no, you don't understand, or it's not like that, or, they're very willing to defend it. And sometimes you'll be at a meeting, and what will happen is the truth will sort of flank you. It'll come at you sideways, and you'll hear somebody talk about something in their life that they've been going through or something they did, and you'll say to yourself in your brain, boy, that guy's crazy. That was crazy what he did there. And then all of a sudden the other part of your brain will say, holy, I was doing that last week. You know what I mean? And so what happens is you convict yourself. It's coming at you. You got your defenses down because you're listening to somebody else's testimony and you're seeing how insane their thinking is and how insane they are and how they actually hurt the other person. And then all of a sudden you start thinking, you say, wow, that's what I did in my first divorce.
That's me.
And you start, that's me.
Yeah.
And you start convicting yourself and learning truths about yourself when your defenses are down because nobody's actually saying you're like that. You're saying you're like that. And so you see things about yourself that you didn't see before.
I know there's something that you often share in the meetings, and it's that awareness, that self-awareness that we're hiding from all the time, because it's painful to look at yourself not as you would hope to see yourself, which is the illusion.
Yeah.
You know, that the only way to start addressing the issues in your life is by acknowledging that they're there. What's your expression? Something about jail?
Well, the first step in getting out of jail is knowing you're in jail in the first place. You know,
right.
A lot of people are incredibly fearful of people, and they don't think they're fearful of people. They say things like, you know, people tend to say things. I used to say, I don't care what they think about. I don't care what they say about me. Well, you know, anybody who says I don't care what they think about me, all they do is think about what other people think about me, because people that really don't care what other people think about me never say I don't care what they think about me. They say things like pass the sugar, but they don't say that stuff.
Right.
And so what happens is you're dealing with a person that all they do is worry about what you're going to think about me. What if I say this? What if I say that? And so they cover up everything, and a lot of it has to do with fear of people and what do they think about you, and meetings help you get past that.
Well, Russell, this has been a fantastic show. I want to let everybody know that they can go to alive-again.org. Dr. Michael Woodham is one of the founders of this, along with Russell of Alive Again Ministries, and they've allowed this radio program to piggyback on the ministry, and I'm thrilled to be able to be part of it. You know, there's something when you get into this surrendered life and you start doing things for a power greater than yourself, and in my life, that's Jesus Christ. You know, incredible things that you never would ever have anticipated, expected, or planned for start happening in your life.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible blessing. So this show the podcast will be on alive-again.org on the radio tab. Just click on it. You can get a hold of us and make any comments. Send email addresses to alive-again.org. There's a way to communicate on the website, and you've got our email at aliveagain.theman@gmail.com. We'll have that on. That's on my phone. I carry that with me all the time. You know, recovery is something that happens daily. So if there's anything that comes up in your life, you want to reach out to us or to me, that's my email. That comes directly to my phone. So thank you so very much for listening. And thank you for coming, Russell.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I love you, Louie, and you know, I just hope somebody gets something out of this, and they can get their life in order.
Russell, I love you too. Thank you for being there for me for these past 11 years. By the way, Russell is my sponsor in the fellowship that I'm involved with.
Yeah.
And he's been a spiritual guide and mentor.
Yeah, well, you've helped me out, Louie. So I get to focus on you, and I don't have to think about my craziness.
So, hey, thanks a lot for tuning in to Alive Again on The Man 1210. Tony, thank you so very much for the opportunity to carry this message to the people that are hurting in South Florida. God bless you. Until next week. See you then.
For tuning in to the Alive Again radio program with your host, Louie Carrillo. To support this program, please visit our website at alive-again.org/radio to make your tax-free donations. God bless, and we'll be here again next Saturday on 1210 The Man from 4 to 5 p.m. Have a blessed day.